Brothers Talking is made possible with the financial support of Goodwill Industries of Southeastern Wisconsin and Metropolitan Chicago, and generous Chicagoans like you.
Welcome to Brothers Talking. I am Dr. Obari Cartman, and we are here for the monthly program that will bring a cross-generational group of Black men together, creating a safe and brave space for honest and vulnerable discussion about the challenges, opportunities, fears, and strengths of Black men. The goal of Brothers Talking is to amplify and explore the lived experiences of Black men, the pain, the joy, success, failure, and the resulting pathways for growth and self-discovery. Before we dive into updates on personal goals, let me quickly reintroduce the brothers taking this 10-month journey together: Benjamin Junius, Jordan Sorrell, Daniel Ash, and welcome back Xavier and Reginald Edwards. Welcome, brothers. So we have been checking in on personal goals every time we meet. You have a face already. What's that? You have a face already. Okay. What's the problem? So I wanted to give us the option to dig right into updates. It's been a month or so since we've checked in on personal goals, but also wanted to make sure we acknowledge the fact that two of our members, two of our circle, two of our beloved brothers were in some very, I don't know, what do you even call it? Just crisis-like situations. And when I think about goals and I think about just getting through the day and just moving forward, sometimes it's important to check in and stay consistent and always be diligent, but sometimes it's important to throw it all away for a second and just say, fuck your goals, and let's pause and acknowledge the moment. So I just want to give us an option to just acknowledge the fact that I'm grateful for you, Brother Xavier and Daniel, for your presence here. Because there was a moment when I was watching y'all timelines and I was like, they might not make it back to this motherfucker. They might like get stuck there or worse. And so I just don't want to just go business as usual in a moment like that when we still at war, and y'all were experienced it in a way that was different than most of us, which is by scrolling and watching it, but y'all were there in a way that I just wanted to give us a moment to acknowledge and a moment of gratitude for your presence and for enduring that moment, but also just the fact that it's hard for me still, just every day to just go to work and just take the kids to school and just ignore the images of the kids dying in Congo and the mass shootings here. And I mean, just it's hard to just keep going sometimes. And so I wanted to give us that option. You know, we can check in on goals and you can have a moment for that, but I just don't want to forget that y'all just went through a very traumatic experience, and wanted to give you an opportunity to share about that if you wanted to, or have that talk about the way it shaped even the process of your work and your goals and your personal development. And I just didn't want to skip that. Y'all both defer to each other at the same time.
Well, yeah, I'll lead off. First of all, it is good to be home. It's good to be here with all of you all. I do want to say Xavier and I had an amazing opportunity to be in Israel, Palestine, to learn.
Yeah.
And while we did experience moments of trauma, we also experienced moments of amazing joy. And for me personally, I found it useful to sort of go back to that pre-war period we had together. And as it relates to sort of like our exploration here, I've spent a lot of time talking about like sort of building my plan or charter for the next phase of life. And as I prepared for the trip to Israel and I experienced those first 2 weeks, the entire trip actually, I found myself on a journey sort of back to my faith in a more formal way. I'm talking about my spirituality. As a Christian, like I've never cried so much in my life. This is before the war broke out. And so it was deeply personal and very relevant to what we're doing here. The trauma that we experienced was a reminder of, and I know it's cliche, but you can't take anything for granted. But it was also a reminder about how injustice, oppression, human beings all over the planet are wrestling with, collectively, demons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's those demons that turn us on one another, right? And so as I think about the work here in Chicago, I think about our place on this planet, like, we all have to keep working on ourselves individually in order to do the collective work that we need, that we'll ultimately need to do in order to break through, whether it's in Palestine, whether it's on the south side of Chicago, whether it's in North Lawndale, thinking about what happened, I think that was Halloween. Like, in order to prevent these moments of trauma, we gotta keep or remain committed to making ourselves better human beings in order to be a better collective, right? To be a better community.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's good to be here.
Yeah.
It's good to be back.
Love it.
Yeah. I appreciate you even raising it up. So as Daniel said, we took this trip over to the Holy Land, and the day that the war broke out on October 7th, we were there in the northern part of the country in a city called Haifa. But we needed to make our way back south to get to the airport. We were trying to get out of there as quickly as possible. Some of us had flights, some of us didn't. Everybody's flight was canceled, of course, because there were rockets going up in the sky. We both were there on the bus at the airport, where I think that was one of the most probably traumatic moments for everybody. Americans don't have a context for what war feels like, because we have not had a war on our land. And so it's for me as an American, talking nationality, it was a very uniquely traumatic experience. Like, I grew up in North Lawndale. I've seen guns. People tried to stab me. I've been beaten down. I've been, all types of different types of violence. But I grew a significantly deeper appreciation for being a part of collateral damage of a national experiment. And seeing, like, I think it was just when we looked out the windows of the bus that night and we saw the rock. I think a lot of us thought they were shooting stars.
Yeah, we were right next to each other.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, it looks like shooting stars. I remember Katie was like, I think those are just like the airport lights of planes, and you see the arc. You see them start to arc toward you, like, stars don't do that. Airplanes don't do that. Those are rockets.
Coming my way.
Yeah, so it's just the fear that grips you.
Wow.
The fear that grips you. And then you go into bomb shelters and you feel even more incapable of self-protection, because if anything, it's just coming down on you. It's just, and that's what people are living through right now. So that experience has given me a greater level of empathy for what people are still enduring in that region, but also a greater sensitivity given how we all had to split up. That was the bigger trauma part, as we all experienced survivor's guilt. As some of us, they came together, but there's no plane that has 29 empty seats when people are trying to evacuate from a country that just started a war a day ago. There's no such thing as empty seats. And so you're gonna have to split up, and people had to take the road into another country, go by bus, go by van. Some of us, I got an earlier flight, and you're just sitting on that flight, hoping that none of these rockets hit the plane you're on. Trying to, like, I've gone on flights 20 times a year. But I've never been on a flight where I was like, it wouldn't be mechanical issues. It would be the intentions of someone else. And so those things, man, they just sat. I was in a quiet, meditative, and self-isolated state for probably 2 weeks after I got back. First week after I got back, I woke up probably every morning crying. I never woke up every night crying, every day crying. It's just, you remember these things, and the little experiences you have, seeing women of color screaming prayers, as they're being, they have infirmities, they can't walk, but they got to get to the bomb shelter. And just the sight of seeing, women screaming prayer. Like it just, you can't get rid of that.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of that. And there's not a real pretense in America for something like that. I will say that processing has put me into the last 25, 30 days of really just being quiet, as everybody else seems to be screaming. Everybody else that's just yelling at each other and about things. It's given me more integrity about the responsiveness, the responsibility, and the necessary invitational tone of my voice, my public voice, while also feeling very ashamed for what others I think would misconstrue as being quiet. I would say it's like I was messed up. Like I was messed up. It's a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot.
Thank y'all for sharing. Thank y'all for coming back and getting back to work, even though you also needed to sit and be quiet for a while. So the topic for today is that toxic masculinity. And it occurs to me how we're talking about war also, which seems to be a very masculine demonstration. I don't know that we would see as much war if more women were in charge. And I don't know, I'm gonna guess it. It's a guess, all right? I don't know that we've seen in history women leading that turns into the kind of violence that men express when that happens. So I want to talk about that. I'm curious to know what we think about how we process what it means to be in a male body and the assumptions and expectations that go with that, and how we internalize it or discard it, and how we sort of wrestle with it. And I appreciate what you say around not feeling guilty for caring for yourself, even though we know there's certain privileges for being American, but there's a responsibility to be able to sustain ourselves to do work that we shouldn't feel ashamed of. So I just want to figure out how we wrestle with that, how each of us sort of struggle with that, and just have an open conversation about this idea of toxic masculinity. The term is one that, I don't necessarily love, but we're familiar with, and I just want to dig into what it means to us and to what extent we think that the society is better over the last several years that we've been using this term toxic masculinity more often, and just kind of to get us to process what that means to us individually and how it can help us or hurt us as a collective.
At Goodwill, we transform lives through the power of work. We believe work is at the heart of human potential. Through a bold mission of connecting people to work, preparing people for life, Goodwill Industries of southeastern Wisconsin and metropolitan Chicago is creating meaningful impact in the communities where we live, work, and serve. By eliminating barriers, we are making fulfilling work available to all so that individuals and communities can thrive. Go to goodwillsew.com to learn how to have the power to support our mission.
According to a New York Times article published in 2019, toxic masculinity has been defined as behavior that includes masking emotions, distress, and maintaining an appearance of solidity. According to the article's author, May Salam, toxic masculinity is what can come of teaching boys that they can't express emotion openly, that they have to be tough all the time, that anything other than that makes them feminine or weak. In 2003, Bell Hooks penned and published the novel We Real Cool, Black Men and Masculinity, an account of her interpretation and understanding of black male identity, in which she discusses not only the imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy that black men are agonized with, but the way that it impacts women in relationships. Writer and licensed therapist Jor-El Carballo stated in an article via Talkspace that the expectation of steely stoicism can cause black men's emotions to manifest them by harming themselves or others. James Evans, who works as a case management coordinator in the mental health field, stated that from his experience, the expectation of stereotypical masculinity that even when not necessarily spoken of is palpable. Brothers, let's talk about it. So we heard some other people's ideas around what the phrase means, toxic masculinity. I know sometimes there's, a sigh when the word shows up. And so there's this dual, I think, responsibility to deal with the fact that, particularly coming from women, that they are saying that there are ways that our masculinity harms them. And there are ways that as men that we have to respond by taking away the weaponized inherent deficiency of being born in this body that I think has not been useful. And so I'm just curious to know what y'all hear when you hear the term toxic masculinity, if y'all feel like it's been a useful sort of introduction to the language of our society, and what ways we as men have wrestled with or advanced and matured our own understanding of our own maleness and what that means, how that serves us, how it privileges us, how it distinguishes us as black men from white men. Those things I would love to hear more about. So, anybody have any first thoughts?
Yeah. So one thing I always think about is, as men, it's like we start from a deficit, right? So when I hear about toxic sounds like a very negative connotation. Not saying that there's some validity to some of the behaviors and things that are experienced by some men, but it's like, well, how do I define first what does it mean to be healthy? You know, how do I have healthy relationships as a man? What does that mean to be in my body, in interactions and spaces and communities with others, versus always the opposite of how do I have to redefine or kind of reconstitute the toxic or behaviors, you know? And so I always put that first and foremost, because I feel like we live such in a deficit culture, like, you know, versus like how do we start from where we have strengths and or what have we learned that's been healthy, and what are the things we have to do better, you know, that could be, you know, help us improve overall as individuals. I think for me, part of it was I just was growing up in a culture where there were certain things that were shown or taught that were okay, you know. Like if I was supposed to be a quote unquote man, I had to do these things, you know, I had to act a certain way, be a certain behavior, dress, you know, interact, to do these things. And if I wasn't, I was seen less than, or I wasn't seen as masculine enough. You know, part of my background is I grew up with women. And so I had a different sensitivity than probably the quote unquote normal or guys that maybe did not. And so when I would be in circles or I would be, you know, with people when I was growing up, and as I got older, I necessarily wasn't seen as like, you know, I wasn't tough, or I wasn't had a certain swag or a certain thing to me, you know, like I was looked at as being feminine in certain qualities. I'm like, no, it's not necessarily it. I just that's what I just knew. I just was in that space, you know, and so I never liked that, you know, first and foremost around this whole toughness or what do you have to show and be. I just wanted to be myself. I just wanted to show up, you know, but the society and culture said I had to be something different, you know, so some of it was, I feel like I caved into some of that, you know, because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be a part of something. And so, you know, those are things that I've worked through as I've gotten older, you know, that I think, you know, being who you are and in your identity yourself is okay. You know, it's okay if you have to struggle and kind of figure it out, but you got to get in a space where it feels healthy and where you're healthy for yourself. And I think therapy, you know, being around the certain circles and things like that have got me to that point where, you know, I could take all those labels off and kind of just say, who do I want to be and what's my humanity want to be, versus this asphyxiation to things, and how does that, you know, persist in at least myself and what I see myself as well too. So, you know, I always take a little bit of exception when we start putting these labels or we start talking about these things, because I just think it could be so messy at times.
Interesting. Reggie, what you think?
You know, honestly, my mind is drawing a blank today. It's been a long day for me. The last 2 weeks have been very long. But when we were talking about toxic masculinity, I realized that I kind of always had a safe space. And similar to Jordan, I've always had the ability to really express my feelings and express my emotions. But I realized that a lot of my male peers growing up, they didn't have that opportunity. So then, similar to what he said, I was seen as maybe less than or as weak or whatever. But I also was aware of why, because just because of the resources that I had growing up. So I was able to realize, like, okay, I can see why they feel that way, but I still am who I am today. And I still struggle with it. I remember growing up with some of my cousins, we had to fight. Like, they would like put us together to fight. I was like, why do I have to prove my toughness? But I will fight, just because I was like, well, I guess I got to prove, that, who I am. But I always knew, like, I don't have to prove who I am just to be a guy. Like, I'm a man just because I am. And I don't have to prove it.
I've heard tough a couple times.
Right.
I hear tough, and I think the thing that I don't like about the conversation is that it assumes that there are certain things that men are and women aren't. And I know a bunch of tough women.
Yeah.
Right. I take. So I think that we do this thing where we do like these categories, and when I'm emotional, then I'm tapping into my feminine side, and still trying to keep it strong. I think we try to make it so that I'm still strong in my feminine side, but it seems like I still got to go outside of myself to be emotional. And the way you describe it doesn't sound like you got to go nowhere. You, in your own body, in your own manness, are emotional because that's a very human thing to do, which is also true for tough, also true for aggressive. I mean, you touch a woman's kid, you'll see aggression. Like we all have all of these things, and something about the way we separate them seems unuseful to me. Where you at on this?
I think that I struggle when it becomes masculine versus feminine. I think that everyone has masculine and feminine qualities in many different ways.
So even there, so what would you say are the masculine and feminine qualities? How would you
I think that by a social standard, right? By a social standard, I think that we view femininity ironically, like as vulnerability, right? So being emotional, being vulnerable, yielding, allowing someone to go before, but there's so much strength in it, so that's why I call it ironic. And masculinity for me, I too always had a safe space. One of the best things that I think my parents could have done was gotten divorced, right? Because when Dad was out of the house, I no longer felt like I had to walk with my chest out. I no longer had to consider all of these pieces of who I am in order to like not get picked at or not get criticized. And growing up, I too, right, was in a position of let's fight. Child, please. Okay, like that's just not, I wasn't. I'm not doing that. I'm not getting dirty for that. I don't care who calls me what. Like, that's not an issue for me. And even in high school, I remember leaving chemistry, and everyone, like, my friends are like running up to me like, did you hear so-and-so was looking for you? And I'm like, well, why is he looking for me? Because he wanted to fight me because someone told him that I thought he was attractive. And so I find that to be an internal issue, right? That's not a Benjamin problem. Because somehow someone worked up this insecure boy enough, regardless of how he got there, enough for him to feel that he had to search out a stranger to fight so that he can prove that, I don't know, that he's not gay, that he's not interested or whatever, because I did not know this man. To this day, I don't know this man. And when we met in the hallway, he's like ready to fight. And I'm like, well, can I just ask, what are we fighting about? And he was like, because you walking around telling people that you think I'm sexy or you think I'm and I'm just like, so I can guarantee that didn't happen. You have to take that up with whoever. And then I walked away. And even that was considered a feminine thing to do. Like if a man approaches you ready to fight, regardless of if he's right or wrong, you fight anyway. And I think that's foolish. I think that's ridiculous. And so walked away, went to mind my business. And then the situation that I've never been in a physical fight before, because I like to say I have the gift to gab, I guess, so I can talk my way out of things. And so a situation like that, and then looking at, and I have to speak from the perspective of like gay culture, right? Where masculinity and femininity are unfortunately really big issues in gay culture, where if you do not present as the stereotypical man, and for lack of a better term, they're called trade.
Okay.
And
Who's
so,
they or the they?
I'm sorry?
You said they are called trade?
Yes,
Like in the,
they
like
are
in
called,
the gay community.
yeah, in the gay community.
A straight passing man will be called
The trade,
okay.
yeah. Those are the trade.
Yeah.
And those are the ones who can, pass for heterosexual straight.
Right.
Because they meet the criteria of what it looks like to be a straight man.
And that's just physically, that's just like
That's just
posture.
physical appearance,
Right.
mannerisms. You could be fully clean, but
Yeah.
And it's
but based on how you present, it's like, oh, I want that. And it's really hilarious because you have gay men who in many ways are put against each other because the attraction there is gay men have even been groomed to want this heteronormative structure to their households where there's a man and woman. I used to hate growing up and people would ask, well, who's the boy and who's the girl in the relationship, right? As if one of the two of us had to be the vulnerable, the one who yielded, the one who bent over, right? And it creates such conflict in ways when it comes to dating, when it comes to identifying partners and things like that, because there are some gay men who may display as more feminine. When I say more feminine, let me rephrase. Who may have a different gender expression, right? So their gender expression may not be male.
Yeah.
Their gender expression may be in between. It may be female. Now, those individuals, in most cases, want someone who is the opposite, right? So two bottoms usually don't want to be together, and they usually present the same way. And so that's another conversation for another day. But it begins to kind of bleed over even into gay culture,
Right.
because you have young men, all men alike really, who have grown up in households, most under the care of a mom, under the care of a grandmother, and who've had many similar experiences, and then join this what's supposed to be safe community of other gay men,
And they replicate
and
the
you
same.
find yourselves
Yeah.
trying to replicate that very community that you work so hard to kind of get out of.
So some might say that's because it's nature, is the argument. But this conversation, even my remarks, is very confusing to me, because I think that what we might be saying is do away with the categories, but then we're in a brothers talking conversation, because we also know that there is something about manness that's real. Like it's something, but then we're saying it's nothing. If it's something, what is it then? Like, what is manhood? Like, what is it?
With me, it's I like being a man. Like I like being a nurturer. I like looking out. It might not have nothing to do with a man, but it might not even have nothing to do with a man. It might just who I am as a person.
Right.
I like being able to look out for my partner. I like, even with my boyfriend, my fiance now, I just got engaged Saturday.
Did you forget?
I know. Yeah, appreciate it. Like I like to open his car door. I like to pay all the bills. That's just stuff I like to do. But now I'm thinking about it, like, where does that come from? I'm gonna have to process that while we wrapping around. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's what your point around like nature versus nurture is like really central to the question of how we, societally have a conversation around what is masculinity. And I'll zoom out from that and say like the quest I went on when I turned 30. When I turned 30, I was like, okay, I've been dating women for 13 straight years. I have been working a job for 14 straight years. I have no idea whatsoever who I am as a man outside of what I have been taught, told, and enforced are my responsibilities to women or are my responsibilities to a household I don't even have. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be. And I read Toni Morrison's quote about racism.
Yeah.
She said one of the great One of the greatest things that racism does is that it distracts you. It distracts you from what you were supposed to be. And now you got to go fight racism. Now you got to go fight the thing that made this thing so hard for you. But then she also was talking about how she had written, she said it took her almost a dozen years to learn how to write. Now she's a Pulitzer Prize winning author, to write outside of the white gaze. And so I was like, okay, that's inspiring. I like where that's starting. So I said at 30, I was like, I'm gonna see what it feels like and try to fight my way back to whatever I was supposed to be before I was only a thing to perform. And I said, I'm gonna try to live my life in such a way that I'm outside of the female gaze. Where nothing I do in a day is because I'm trying to perform for a woman, or because I'm trying to produce for a woman, or I'm trying to protect for a woman, or I'm trying to find me a woman, or I'm trying to whatever. That was a hell-written 8 years. It is so hard. Like Tony said, it took her almost a dozen years. Because it's so hard as a straight man to find any place where anybody will engage with you outside of what they may also project are your responsibilities in the moment. Not based off of who you are as Xavier Ramey, or who you are as the child of this parent and that parent, or whatever it may be. Not based off of who you see yourself as. It's based off of this societal design around what you should be based off of these assumptions of performance. And I get to this point of performance because I think that masculinity, specifically in the American context, is not a conversation about what men are. It's about a conversation of what they should be for others. Even the conversation around toxic masculinity, it does not, I don't think that when you started, right? Like women are saying we need to be safer. I look at that conversation and I'm like, that's still a conversation about how I should be performing for someone else. That's still starting the ball at my obligations to someone else, not at what am I when I'm healthy as me, and what actually serves me, and what actually, as an expression of me, creates an invitation, a safety, a security by default out of a powerful self-expression for others around me. But it doesn't start with them. It has to in some way start with the I that I am before it can be something that is an I for you, or an I for you, or whatever I'm supposed to be for them. But that, even what I'm saying right now, I think is such a hard concept for a lot of people. And I'm saying that because I spent the last 8 years, I'm 38 now, I spent the last 8 years, man, when I tell you it's hard for people to wrap their heads around, what do you mean you don't owe me something? What do you mean you're not supposed to be safer around?
Maybe it's hard because it's.
Excuse the language then. Excuse the language. I don't want to locate on the word owe. But what I am saying is the word perform is of central focus.
So what I'm struggling with is the back to the nature still. What about the human design and the universe design, the world design, that is interdependence? That the struggle to be isolated first and find ourselves first is hard because we not made like that.
Oh, no, I don't mean to say, no,
that's not what I'm saying.
I did not mean that it's my job to figure out in isolation what I am. I'm always going to want to, I feel that part of my biological design is to want community, but also it is necessary for my survival. I believe that. But the question of learning around people who haven't exercised their insistence of my performance, I do want to be separate from them when I'm trying to heal and I'm trying to grow and be self-defined. I don't think that I grow and learn and heal around people who don't even have a vocabulary for me not having a performance for them. That's all I'm saying. And I think that a lot of women, men, and non-binary, they are all dealing with that because very few of us take the journey, like Tony said, and how hard it was, and there's a reason it took so long to realize just how deep the rabbit hole goes the moment you say, I as a black woman want to write from a black woman perspective, and you realize how race is in everything. In the same way, I as a black man want to understand what it means to be a man as an individual outside of the gaze of women and men and obligation and job and perform outside of it. It's been 8 years. That's what I said, it's been hard. That doesn't mean that I don't do community. It means that I have to understand when someone else hasn't tried to grasp for health in a way that allows me to be healthy as well.
I love the Toni Morrison quote. I think the thing that feels different is racism is unnatural. It's an imposition, it's a creation. But there's something about relationships that it seems like my connection to women, there's something performative about it for sure, but what of it is real? It's just
That's what I said I experienced in Israel.
Yeah.
That's why I came back here and I was like, even more, I've now been affirmed that there's something wrong about the way we're doing it here. When I was it was 99% black people on that trip.
Yeah.
Mostly women.
Yeah.
And at no point did I feel what I feel when I'm here in America with women. I was traveling with only American women. But the communities that they came from, the ways that they saw masculinity, the way that this trip was orchestrated, the way that we were visitors in another place, like all of that combined for me to have the first experience in 8 years of actually being free. To laugh, to carry luggage and not feel an obligation, to pay for people's coffees and not feel like it was because I was performing. And I was just, I'm sitting back now 3 weeks later and I'm still man, what was it?
Yeah.
What was it? Because clearly it's possible, and it's possible with women of color, it's possible with women, it's possible. But there's something about the way that we do it. There's something here, and I don't know what it is. I'm just sharing the I don't know-ness, but I'm also saying I'm on that 8 year out of 12 years for Tony, and I don't think that I know that race is a construct, but I also know that the way that we look at masculinity in America is also partly construct.
For sure.
I know that the ways in which black men specifically are held accountable for and expected to perform what white men have the safety to perform in America is also a construct that is placed upon us by our communities, not without understanding it, but it doesn't mean that that's going to help our health to be asked to perform as only white men have been able to.
No, I agree with that. Any of y'all come up with anything that you find has been just genuine, authentically real about your manhood? That it's not a performance, it's not a imposition, it's not a construction. It's just like, this just feels like what I was created to do, and it comes out naturally. It expresses itself because it's so authentic. And part of the reason I asked that question is because I do a lot of work with young men, and I think one of the things we try to figure out is, what do you teach? I got sons, what do you teach? If I'm trying to give him a guidebook, a rule, a blueprint, what are the values, principles that I can say, this is what a man do, what a man don't do, right? And is it nothing? Like, is it you just figure shit out as you go along? Or there's some, like, it can't be nothing. Like, I got to give him something. But what is it? Like, what is the thing to give my sons to help them that's healthy, that's real, that's like, because otherwise they're going to make it up. Or they're going to, you know what I'm saying, they're going to get it from somewhere else.
And it's foregoing wisdom. Because you haven't lived your whole life as a man.
I have to have figured something out.
There's an inheritance that you have, not have to give, but that you have that can be given.
That's right.
And to forsake the idea that as an older man, I have nothing to give, and anything I would give is an imposition on the who that you are.
Right.
Like, there's a way to do it.
Right.
I just think that there's nothing to give, and anything that's given is now an imposition. I think I don't agree with that. I think that it's important, and the older men I've had in my life, I'm so glad that they came around me. There were some toxic things I now got to heal from, but there's also a lot of instruction and dopeness and healthy things and ways for me to be in community with men that I've grown from and love.
Yeah.
See, I want to pick up on that because I do feel that the combination of men in my life ultimately taught me how to be free to be me. So when you were given the definition and the word stoicism, like being stoic, that jumped at me because I was thinking about one particular man in my life. He was an uncle. We called him Uncle. His nickname was Doll Boy, as in like baby doll, Doll Boy. And this is a really tough guy. He always had a cigar in his mouth. And when you ever had that uncle, you come over to the house and they just sit.
Yeah.
You know, they may have a little drink on the side, but they don't say much.
Yeah.
Right. You know, he just nod at you, look at you, come up. You know,
Yeah.
stoic. He just like we didn't tell stories, didn't tell jokes, and but you went over there, shook his hand, and every once in a while he may give you a couple coins. Right.
Yeah.
Alongside Uncle Dollboy, I had my father and another uncle who they like Xavier. They're the storytellers, right? Yeah. You know, they could just hold a room.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier on another show we had where my dad, a high school dropout, handed me Langston Hughes, right? I go back to them because those same men did some things that would probably be defined as toxic, right? In terms of the relationships they had with women, multiple women, side women, you know, all of that. In terms of like the roles and responsibilities, expectation of the house, the fact that I have like 4 brilliant sisters, and it was me to be, you know, I'm like fourth in line. I went to college. I was the first generation, and they all had straight A's. There's a reason why that happened. In terms of gendered roles and expectations. So as I think about this, as I think about masculinity, and when it's toxic, I think for me it's that state is a state of not allowing men to express their feelings, whatever that feeling is. I do think that for me, my experience was one where you said you got to hold things in because you have to perform a certain role and responsibility. And I actually think, quite frankly, I think like I wouldn't be where I am today if I had not given myself spaces, even small spaces, to challenge that. And, you know, you talk about sort of like life stage. This is the thing. I feel like I'm in a state where I can fully like allow myself to be expressive. I mean, think about it, 53 years old, and just reach to the point where it's like, you know, if I need to cry, I can cry. If I need to celebrate, I can celebrate. If I want to be joyful, I can be joyful, right? If I want to be playful, I can be playful. You know, there was a time when you talk about you got to grow up. You know, you can't be playful. You know, I remember hearing that when I was 17 years old. You know, so as I think about like the value, and I really do appreciate like this space of hearing how these roles, these socialized roles get sort of like superimposed on us, and then when you add the issue of sort of race, it becomes even more challenging to perform those roles, which creates even more challenges in our households and our community. But at the end of the day, as human beings, right, we should all have permission to be the yielders, to be the nurturers, to be the protectors.
That's right.
Right? To be the earners, right? To be the givers. Like when we get to that point where we truly, you know, I had a colleague of mine, I think her name was Jacqueline Bogus, University of Wisconsin. And so she used to always say, when we can get to the point where, as men and women, or non-binary, when you're in a household and there's some socks on the floor, when every single person in the room thinks to themselves, I better go pick up those socks. She used to use this, I know it's kind of silly to think of it this way, but when everybody actually says, it's my responsibility to pick up the socks, particularly if you have children, right? And not somebody else. It's like, if everybody can understand that and we can all see ourselves having that responsibility, we'll be in a much better place. But because of these gendered roles, you know, we get tired, like somebody else is going to get the socks, right? Particularly, you know, the mother's going to get it, the sister's going to get it, the auntie's going to get it. So again, for me, coming back to this issue, it's all about, you know, masculinity or femininity is toxic when whatever is prescribed or pre-prescribed in those sort of labels restricts your ability to be expressive as a human. You're going to hurt yourself and you're going to hurt your community.
I hear that. I also know that as much as free as you are to express yourself in those ways, that when you at work, that you might be disappointed, but still have to be stoic to a certain degree. That we're not just teaching men to cry whenever you're sad.
I feel like we're getting better though with that, in my opinion. From what I see, I feel like we're getting better with that as a society.
I don't know if I would call that bad. I don't want my sons to get made fun of on the schoolyard and start crying. I don't want them to always just express immediately what they feel all the time. I don't know if that's evolution. I don't know.
What's the damage in expressing their feelings?
I think there is still a very much practical vulnerability that I consider a safety issue.
Yeah.
That like if your boss tell you late and you hurt your feelings, I don't know that it's appropriate all the time to just cry when you feel sad.
Oh yeah, no,
Right.
There's
still you still have to navigate the feeling of it and being honest with the feeling, and then knowing how to express it, when to express it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a man or woman thing. Women talk about the superhero syndrome.
I've learned that with me, I've learned to tell people, hey, what you just said, it made me feel some type of way. I might not even be able to put emotion to it, but it made me feel some type of way.
Yeah.
I'm not crying about it,
Yeah.
but what you did say affected me in some way or somehow. And I've learned that when I'm open and vulnerable with my feelings, that allows the other person to just sit back and reflect like, okay, maybe I did say something. A lot of times, or they walk away, or whatever the case may be.
Or they take advantage of you and kick your ass.
Yeah, they ain't gonna kick my ass,
Yeah.
See, there we go. The fighting, the fighting thing again,
Because somebody might. There's somebody that can kick your ass out here.
I think it's balance.
Yeah.
Everything needs balance in our society.
What I would have wanted from my father is someone to say, like, you know what, it's okay to feel what you're feeling. And even if, like, in that moment, it's not the right place or right moment to cry, it's okay to go to the bathroom
For sure,
or come
absolutely.
home and cry.
Yeah.
If you need to cry.
Yeah.
I was taught, again,
Just never.
like,
Yeah.
never just push it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't until I realized, like, it's okay to feel what you're feeling. I remember one years ago, I made a mistake. I used to work in communications directly, and this is gonna sound so small, but you send stuff off to get it printed, it comes back, you get like 4,000, 5,000 copies of a booklet, and we looked at the cover, and there was a mistake on the cover.
Yeah.
It was probably the first moment that it was such a painful moment that I couldn't even stop myself from pushing it down. I couldn't even go there.
Yeah.
But there was this moment in hindsight that was kind of freeing, right? Because the people around me, and again, I was much younger. Like it surprised them so, because I was at the time early in my career. You guys might not believe this, but I was more of a command and control type person, because that's what we got taught. That's how management was taught. And so I had this and I was a football player at that too, right? And I mean, it was almost like involuntary muscle movement, right? I just lost it. But again, once people actually felt they had permission to kind of like come and like say, "Oh, are you okay?" And then I changed the dynamic of the relationships, and those relationships I think are deeper. And actually, they're present. They're current in my life today because we experienced that.
Yeah.
But it took a really dramatic moment like that for me to actually have that cry that I never allowed myself to have at the playground or at football practice.
Right.
Or even when we lost the state championship. You know what I'm saying? You were back in the day, you were kind of like, think about next year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, for me, it's like I wanted to make sure that I continue to allow myself that freedom, and with my boys, probably to the point where I annoy them sometimes. I'm always checking in with them in a way, like it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling, right? And allow that feeling to show up in any way that you want it to show up.
I was just gonna say that at a really young age, I think I learned how to respond, like in times of inconvenience, in times of confusion or concern. I think that having the language to identify not just our emotions, but also how we respond to someone who's picking on us, right? How we respond to someone because I think that anyone who just starts fighting to me, you lack vocabulary. To me, you lack people skills, my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that the best thing my parents did is, you all may have done this too, is I couldn't do anything until you like copied pages of the dictionary, right? Like you're copying all these pages of the dictionary to build your vocabulary so that you're able to identify, because we know we can experience what our bodies go through, you know, our heart start pumping, our blood start, and we really feel like we about to you know, do something. And but when we have the tools to respond, and I think as I'm hearing everyone share, I'm even asking myself, like, have I been performing? Or is that just who I am?
Right.
You know, my mom just passed away a couple of weeks ago, and as we were like preparing services and families flying in, everyone is asking, you know, how are you doing? How are you holding up? And we've kind of been under this microscope of when is he going to break down? When is he going to have his moment of whatever it's supposed to look like? And for me, it's like, well, you know, I loved my mom. She was my best friend, and I am at peace with what that transition was. But people thank you. But you know, people have been looking or picking or like checking in to waiting on that moment to happen, because there's almost this expectation that it's supposed to happen. And for me, I'm like, well, decisions have to be made. You know, I'm coordinating this because in my mind, you know, I'm one of 7 children, and they're all, nothing wrong with being emotional, but they're all very emotional creatures. And it's just, someone has to have a head on, you know, to be able to respond or to be able to do different things. And so that's kind of the role I took, you know.
But not because you're a man, because you might have a skill set.
Because, exactly. And I think that people make this connection of, you know, of manhood and assume that, okay, Benjamin is at some point like going to break, and we're gonna be here when he falls apart. And it's just it's just not who I am, you know. But there's so much beauty and I think there's a really fine line. And I think Xavier went to this earlier, where it's like, it's just so ingrained that it does kind of cause me to question, was I built this way? Is this really who I am? Is it a performance? Because I'm so accustomed to, that's what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to look like
But my thing is, at the end of the day, if you like yourself who you are, then that's okay. That's okay.
You had a closing statement. We got to wrap up.
Yeah, I think that one of the challenges of I was going to say addressing masculinity. That's been, I'm trying to get away from that for the last 8 years. One of the challenges of defining and experiencing masculinity is also the ways in which an environment, of a community environment, does have an enforcement mechanism for what it sees as normal for you. So like, I grew up in K-Town, in Holy City, in Chicago.
Right.
You can't just be any type of man in Holy City. You can't. We can say we want it. We can say you deserve it.
Right.
But there is a certain type of specifically man that will be successful. When I say successful, I don't mean in corporate. I mean physically safe and make it to 18.
Right.
There are certain traits that may be, like I was the gift of gab person too. And I had, for my neighborhood, very much my gender expression was not normal, right? I was never gay, but everybody was always like, my whole life. Now, that said, I know that for where I was at versus where I then saw other men got to grow up at, we had wildly different experiences. Not because of the man I was or because of what I couldn't be. It was because there's a certain masculinity that was enforced in that environment. And I'll just be specific. Growing up, I grew up around a lot of women. Women were the main ones enforcing that. It was women of color who were enforcing that. It was from an early age. As soon as they heard no scrubs, that was the anthem. Like, that was the anthem. Like, hanging out the side of your best friend's ride. How are you 14 and you out the back, the passenger side of your best? I said, we can't drive, can't get a license. Right? Like, and their mothers, their aunts, their uncles, in the churches, this was happening. The question of offering plates and the side tithes and before we got to digital, offerings and people was putting bills into the thing, it was a question of how much are you carrying this institution? And we're now the first generation that has any opportunity to redefine what we have been collectively subjugated to perform.
Yeah.
And I think we need more grace for each other.
Yeah, love it.
Hi, I'm Dr. Candace Norcott. On this season of Be Well, we'll explore issues of emotional and mental well-being, centering Black women and men in an honest, engaging, and relatable way. From navigating generational trauma and microaggressions to managing stress in relationships. Join the conversation on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
We obviously could talk about this forever. What I appreciate about the conversation is that we did not land on an answer to a question, right?
Yeah.
Because it's gonna evolve. It's a journey. There is no thing. There is no landing. It's the questioning.
Yeah.
I think is the beautiful part of the process. So, thank y'all. We gonna wrap. Once again, our time together has come to a close. Fortunately, we'll be back next week. Next month for another hour together in conversation and community. For those of you watching at home or work or from your favorite park bench, thank you for taking this journey with us. It is our hope that together we can support and encourage one another to give ourselves and each other the space and the grace to be and to feel with the freedom we deserve to be and to feel. The physical and emotional well-being of Black men doesn't always get the spotlight it deserves, but together we're committed to doing our part to change that. Thank you for stepping into the space with an open mind and an open heart and a commitment to creating space for brothers to talk and share and learn more about themselves and each other. Until next time, Chicago, I'm Dr. Obari Cartman, and good night.